Motivation, inspiration. The best leaders excel at both. But could there really be anything you don't know, you haven't heard, about how to motivate, how to inspire? I think what you're about to hear in this talk is pretty unique and powerful.
Thanks for the invitation to talk about inspiration and motivation today. It's always fun to talk about this topic because not only of what we know, but how important it is to leadership. I mean, if we can be honest with each other, most of us are not as inspirational or motivational as we should be because it's hard to do. And it's even harder to talk about it because it's easy to be trite or banal about it and tell you silly things about how people motivate and inspire, but there's some really good thinking about it, and we know some things that I think you're going to want to know that very few people have any understanding of, because in a little while I'm going to argue that there's a universal of motivation and inspiration that is not known by the overwhelming majority of leaders. Listen, this is hard because people need leaders who are inspirational and motivational. We want a lot of things from leaders, maybe even unreasonably so, but the thing we crave and we desire from leaders that we don't get from parents, from our spouses, from our friends, from our colleagues, but especially from the people in workplaces that we report to is inspiration and motivation. Now, let's talk about the difference between those two things because I'm going to kind of conflate them and talk about them as the same thing, but they are different. So motivation is generally thought of what people do to compel people to action. So when I do something that gets you to do something else, that's usually a motivating force. Some people are, of course, self-motivated. They don't need much push, but all of us need a little nudge here and there so that we're compelled to do things either the way that I want them done or to do them a little faster and so forth. And anything that I do that compels you to action is considered a motivating act. Inspiration is a little different. Inspiration is lighting the fire under people. It's the idea that what I do gets you to want to achieve, gets you to want to succeed, generally speaking, gets you to want to have the discipline to work harder and sacrifice more and so forth. So it's a broader concept. And you don't have to really think about those two ideas very differently because the majority of things that are motivational can be inspirational and vice versa. Not always, but the key is I'm not concerned about the differences. I'm concerned about how we do this. How do the best leaders inspire and motivate other people? What I'll say is this. Good leaders motivate. Really, really great leaders motivate and inspire. So they're compelling people to action, and they're also lighting the fire. They're creating an interest and a desire to want to achieve even more. Now, the thing that makes inspiration and motivation so hard is people are really different. How many of you have multiple children? Raise your hand. Keep your hand up if one of your children is really different from the other child. Yeah, most people, right? How many of you have a sibling on the planet? Okay. Keep your hand up if one of your siblings is really, really different than you. Yeah. This is always my favorite question. How many of you have a spouse, partner, significant other on the planet that you spend a lot of time with? All right, now keep your hand up if your spouse, partner is really different than you. Exactly, okay? Fascinatingly, I don't know if the research supports this, but clearly opposites attract in every group that I ask. It's about 90% of everybody that raises their hand, and some people really raise their hand to that one, okay? People are really different. And those differences are noticeable in very distinctive ways in terms of how they do what they do, how they think, how they approach things, and so forth. And that's before you start dealing with people that come into teams, that come from different cultures, that come from different organizations. People are really, really different. What does that mean? It means that I have to motivate you differently than I motivate you. You are a different kind of a person, so you need a swift kick in the butt. You need high challenge. You need high bar, high standard. That motivates you. Somebody else in the room demotivates you. You need praise, recognition, approval. When I give you some recognition, give you some level of approval, okay, that motivates, inspires you to do more. Somebody else in this room, motivation might be important, but when I give you praise, recognition, bounces off you like you have a force field around you. The view on motivation inspiration is because people are different and they're motivated by different things, that if I'm going to be a good leader, even somebody that borders on being a great leader, I have to size you up. I have to know what are your buttons? What are the things that really light your fire, blow your whistle, really get you going? If I know those things, then I'm able to adapt my leadership to be more motivational to you. The problem with that is that people are really different, And as a result of that, I have a lot of things that I need to master, a lot of skills I need to inculcate and become pretty proficient at. And that makes this thing really hard if I have this view. And by the way, it's the predominant view and a very good one, because what most people have in their head about what motivates other people is really good. All right, so let's just review a couple of things that you already know that I think are powerful. We already talked about praise. We've already talked about challenge and expectation, but there's many more. Maybe the most common one in organizations is incentives. And there's both incentives and disincentives. Maybe the most prolific incentive that we know is money, compensation. And by the way, you're going to have somebody in your life that's very coin operated, that's everything that moves them, motivates them, inspires them. They want more. Other people, not so much important. Doesn't mean it doesn't matter at all. We all have a need for security and satisfaction of life and so forth. We have financial needs and so forth. But some people are not so motivated by money. They're motivated by other things, like a higher purpose, a big why, a bigger reason. Other people are motivated by mastery, learning, development. They want to learn. Other people, more about watching you. They respect you, so they want to emulate you, and their relationship with you matters, and that's what motivates them. But the person who's motivated by you, somebody else, not so much. The person who's motivated by incentives or the disincentive of you giving them the cold shoulder when they don't comply with you, which is a classic one in relationships, especially marriages, maybe works with one person, doesn't work with somebody else. Maybe you have a child who really wants to belong, wants to be a part of something, wants an identity, and they're really motivated. Another child, not so much. You have somebody on your team who has a great need to have control, autonomy, responsibility. They want it. They want to own the satisfaction of doing it on their own. Somebody else runs from that responsibility, does everything in their power not to have control or autonomy, not because they don't want to be a part of that accountability. People are really different. So what most leaders do as a result is they try their best. They try to start sizing people up as they become aware of all the different things that motivate people, as well as they know their own motivations and things that inspire them. They try to adapt and flex. And they start to think about, how do I craft and tailor my messages to you, my actions to you, so that maybe I'm more motivational. The problem with that is many different people with many different contexts and situations that are fluid. And so what happens is the complexity of that overwhelms us, and we quickly give up, and what we do is we just have our go-to. And if I tend to be motivated by praise, then I become better at motivating other people with praise, whether it works or not. If I'm somebody that really operates by incentive, I tend to offer lots of incentives to people. If somebody that really is motivated by the story of people overcoming hard things in life, I share my story all the time about things that I've overcome and the like, because it's easy to have a go-to. But what that means is you're not all that inspirational, except when you get lucky, you happen to have the right person on your team or the right person in your life. And so most of us aren't nearly as inspirational or motivational as we could be as leaders, as we should be as leaders. Not because we don't want to be, not because it's not something that we think is important, but because it's too hard. It's just too complex for us to do. And we're busy, and we have other things we need to attend to. And we realize motivation, inspiration is an important part of leadership, but it's not everything. I have to make good decisions. I have to build great relationships. I have to give people good feedback. So maybe I don't have to be so great at this. Maybe I can get away with just simply going to my go-to. But after studying 12,000 exceptional leaders, what if I told you that we found a universal of motivation and inspiration? We found something that, if you master it, if you become skillful at it, it works with everybody all the time, irrespective of their age, their generation, their experience, their organizations, their cultures. That there's something on the planet about the human condition that we've been able to find the best leaders believe in and do that is universal and timeless about motivation and inspiration. What if I told you we knew that? Would you want to know that? I think you should want to know that for this reason. If you become masterful at this one idea and the things that make it up, you're motivational all the time. You're more inspirational all the time. You don't have to size people up or adapt. You can simply develop a style that becomes this thing that's genuine and unique to you. That's something that you do right now, but that you make and privilege and bring more of out of you. And in the process of that, you become more motivational, inspirational to everybody around you. How about that? So over a really long period of time of spending lots of time of interviewing leaders, talking to people around them, including their friends and family, trying to find their artifacts of emails and speeches and presentations, reading all the interviews they have given, some cases getting the ability or the possibility of following them around, getting them a chance to see them in their team meetings and so forth. We were able to separate out who are really exceptional inspirational leaders and what do they think about, but in particular, what do they do differently? And so I'm going to offer you a frame. And this frame, once you know it, is going to show you what that universal is. And so while I'm not going to have the time to give you all the ways to demonstrate this idea, I am going to give you this frame so you could figure it out on your own. Now, rather than me just tell you this frame, I want to tell you a story. Now, I happen to love the game of golf. I played in college. I really love the beauty and the artfulness of golf. I apologize if golf is not your thing, but I'm going to tell you a golf story. And more importantly, I'm going to tell you a story about a celebrity that you know of, who has an exceptional influence on the game, and his name, as you probably recognize, is Tiger Woods. Now, the story I'm going to tell you is the 2005 Masters Golf Tournament, Augusta, Georgia. This is years before a 9-iron goes through his window and his life is totally shattered, where he has to have all kinds of mea culpas and figure out everything else. This is when he's at the height of his prowess. This is when Tiger Woods is perhaps the best golfer that ever played the game of golf. He's in the Masters Golf Tournament, one of the majors of golf. He's in contention. He's actually leading by a shot going into the last round. He's on the 16th hole of that Augusta course, and he hits his ball on the 16th hole, a hole over water, par 3, with a two-tiered green, which means one side's higher than the other. He hits his ball to the left of the green, and it's sitting on what's called the collar. The collar of a shot means there's high rough, and then there's short fairway grass. And he's sitting right against the edge, which is a really hard shot because that means your club face has to come through high grass before it nips the ball. And the commentators who are watching the shot, now he's leading by a stroke in the field, are saying how difficult this might be. He's got water in front of them, but it's not in play. But what's going to happen is they're saying if he gets it into the hillside and he tries to get it close, it's liable to drift off into the bunker, the sand trap to the right, and put himself into a horrible position. And everyone's talking about a difficult shot of this, and anybody that plays golf knows this is a really hard thing to do. But Tiger Woods is at the master, or the height of his prowess. He's the master of this short game. And he does something that very few people can do. He actually puts spin on a shot through high grass, steep and lofted club. And he's actually aiming for a target the size of a dime. We learned that from his caddy after the tournament, about 20 feet away. And he hits exactly that dime. That's how good this guy is. And the ball scoots up, and it checks because it has spin. And instead of moving away toward the sand trap, it moves precisely and starts to trickle toward the cup. 5,000 people sitting around the amphitheater of this green, trees beyond them, are watching this and see what might happen because this ball is moving slowly directly toward the cup. They start going crazy. They start clapping and screaming and hollering. Their exuberance is felt. The ball gets within 3 feet of the cup and it's still moving, and they go crazier. They get even more wild and more excited about the shot. The ball goes to the edge of the cup and it stops there. There's a brief lower volume, and then the din gets even higher because people are hoping, wishing, okay? And the Nike logo on his golf ball, not perfectly, but pretty close to squared on camera in front of those millions of people. I'm not sure what that was worth, but it was worth a lot of money. So the ball sat on the edge of the cup for 2.2 seconds. Think about how long that is. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and in another 0.2 of a second, the ball makes the final revolution and falls into the cup for a birdie, 2, and now he's 2 shots up, and he goes on to win the golf tournament, the 4th Masters in his career at that time. One of the most amazing golf shots in the history of professional golf, and Tiger Woods did it in the Masters on Sunday, in contention, in front of the millions of people in the audience and those people around that green. Sports writer, watching all this right from the edge, who sees and witnesses this, is experiencing this and says, when that ball got to within 3 feet of the cup, the excitement of that crowd was so large and so huge that everything started to move. And when that ball got closer and closer, that the exuberance and the yelling and the clapping and the screaming was so big that he could feel the vibration all the way up to his thighs. And he wrote the next day in the newspaper, that ball made the final revolution for one reason and one reason alone, because everybody around the green wanted it to go in. Not because they thought they could make it go in, but because they were that enthused for that shot and for Tiger Woods at that moment. Now, we've studied lots of the best inspirational leaders, and I will tell you they have something in common with that story. Because that story is a frame, a metaphor for exactly how the best leaders motivate and inspire people every day. The question that you have to ask yourself, and that story represents, is, are you a fan? Because what people want, no matter who they are, however senior they are, however junior they are, whether they're kids or 55-year-old directors, they want somebody they respect, somebody that they admire, clapping for them, cheering for them, rooting for them, being their fan. And that when you do that for other people, it compels them to action and lights the fire for them to perform at the highest level. What the universal of all inspiration and motivation is fanness. It's demonstrating to people that I would do anything for you to succeed, that I'm always rooting for you, I'm always clapping for you, I'm always cheering for you. I can't make your ball go in, but I can want it to go in every day. And when people feel that from leaders, they're inspired by them. Now, what I can tell you is this. It doesn't matter that you tell people that you're their fan. I'm sure it might not hurt, but it doesn't help. That what the best leaders do is actually show their fanness. Now, most of us are pretty good at being fans when things are good. We're in a good spot in our marriages. We have great grades that come home from school. We have a team that's performing at a high level. Revenue targets have been hit. Pretty easy to be a fan. But inspiration is not something you turn on and turn off, nor is fanness. What the best leaders do is they're fans all the time, good times and bad. It doesn't stop them from having hard conversations or holding people accountable. It says that because of our relationship and because I lead you, I'm always rooting for you. And I want you to succeed. And I'm going to prove it to you behaviorally by how I act and how I engage. What we know about fanness is this. When people believe that you are a fan of them, they will generally be a fan back. But more importantly, it makes them feel differently about you and themselves. And that's what's so inspirational. In fact, almost everything about fanness makes people feel special in a way that isn't necessarily about being special. It's about feeling it. And so the key is to master every day, how is it that you don't make people feel special, but how you show your fanness. And the rest of it will happen and come. So not that long ago, we were studying Phil Jackson, the NBA basketball coach. Well, we were studying at the time when he was the coach of the Chicago Bulls. And in the process of studying him, what we learned was one of the things he did to motivate and inspire his players, including Michael Jordan, who played for the Bulls at that time, is before big games, sometimes even not before big games, maybe an everyday game, he would take a little card and he would write a quote, an inspiration, something that he thought might jazz you or motivate that player, and he would tape it onto one of the hooks in their locker. And then, years later, we heard Michael Jordan speak about that in a session, and Michael Jordan said, confirming that story, that anytime he opened up his locker and he saw one of the quotes, by the way, sometimes the quotes were corny, sometimes they were kind of stupid, didn't know what they meant, but sometimes they were kind of cool. He said, but anytime I opened the locker and I saw the quote, always made me feel special. And when I heard that, it hit me really hard. Because let's get this straight. When Michael Jordan played for the Chicago Bulls, he needed to feel special. If that's true, then there's no one in your life or my life that doesn't need to feel special. Which means there's no one in your life or my life that doesn't need your fanness. So while many people are adapting and flexing to people's differences in terms of what motivates them, and I want you to do that too, I want you to work on being the most universally inspiring leader you can, which means being a great fan of other people. I wish I had time to tell you the 40-some different behaviors we've been able to identify in terms of how the best leaders show and demonstrate their fanness, but we don't have time. You're going to have to go to admiredleadership.com to learn a little bit more about that. But what I will tell you is that it's about the first idea, which is the very mindset of, I'm going to choose to be a better fan of my kids, of my spouse, of my friends, of my colleagues, of my team, even my leader, the person that maybe I report to. I'm going to choose to think about in my fanness how I root for you, how I clap for you, how I cheer for you, how I show you that I want you to succeed. And in the process of that, I'm going to ask you to think more deeply about how you demonstrate it on an ongoing, everyday basis. And when you become a great fan, good times and bads, you inspire everybody around you. You don't have to only motivate people based on what motivates them. Everybody on the planet wants the people that they respect and they admire to be their fans. And nobody outgrows it. That's the universal of inspiration and motivation. I hope you enjoyed that.
Fanness. Can you become that kind of leader? For more insight, visit admiredleadership.com.